Otto stands frozen at the restaurant table as his mother slides the envelope across to him, announcing, "From all of us," with a cold smile. His sister Amy holds up her phone, recording his reaction while his father and brother smirk. Otto opens it to find official disownment papers on his graduation day. Instead of breaking down, he calmly thanks them, takes the papers, and walks out, leaving his family confused. What they don't know is that Otto's name is about to be called by the CEO of Vertex Technologies, changing everything. I grew up in a family where success was measured by a very specific yardstick. My father, Gerald, built his reputation as one of the most aggressive corporate lawyers in Boston. His name struck fear in boardrooms across New England. My mother, Diane, transformed a small real estate agency into a luxury property empire through sheer determination and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Together, they created a legacy that my older brother Jack eagerly embraced, following my father into law with the same shark-like instinct. My younger sister Amy found her place too, leveraging our family connections to become a social media influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers who watched her showcase our family's wealth. Her entire personality was crafted for public consumption, each post carefully calculated to maximize engagement while appearing effortlessly perfect. And then there was me, Otto, the middle child who never quite fit the mold. From the time I was 8 years old, computers fascinated me. While my siblings attended networking events with our parents, I would disassemble old computers, figuring out how each component worked together. By 12, I was writing simple programs. By 14, I had created my first app. My parents viewed this interest as a quirky hobby at best, a distraction from my real purpose at worst. Computers are for the tech support people who work for men like us. Otto, my father would say, his hand heavy on my shoulder. We don't fix the machines. We own the companies that buy them. Every achievement of mine was measured against my siblings. When I won the state science fair in 10th grade, my mother smiled tightly and said, "That's nice, dear. Did you know Jack just got accepted to pre-law at Harvard?" When I was invited to a young programmers summit in San Francisco, my father scheduled a family vacation to Martha's Vineyard the same weekend, refusing to let me miss it. Family comes first, Otto. Always. These computer games won't build your future. Despite my passion, I was enrolled at Lambert University, my father's alma mater, to study business. The prestigious college was my parents' choice, not mine. The business program was their choice, not mine. My future at my father's firm was their choice, not mine. But for the first time in my life, I made a choice of my own. After freshman year, I switched my major to computer science. I didn't tell my family. Instead, I worked twice as hard, taking business electives alongside my computer science courses to maintain the facade. I pulled all-nighters, surviving on ramen and energy drinks, hiding textbooks inside fake business administration covers when I went home for holidays. The deception was exhausting, but each line of code I wrote felt more honest than anything I'd ever done to please my family. As graduation approached, my anxiety grew. Soon, I would have to reveal the truth. But something unexpected happened 3 weeks before graduation day. My mother called about graduation arrangements. "We're planning a special dinner for you at Morton's after the ceremony," she said. "Your father is very proud, you know. He doesn't show it often, but he's been telling his partners about you joining the firm." For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they would understand. Maybe when they saw my honors in computer science, they would finally recognize my passion was valid. Maybe graduation day would be when I finally earned their respect on my terms. I spent the next 3 weeks rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain that I had found my own path. I bought a new suit for graduation, wanting to show them I could look the part of success, even if it wasn't the version they had planned. As I laid it out the night before graduation, I allowed myself to imagine a future where my family accepted me for who I actually was, not who they wanted me to be. That night, I barely slept, caught between hope and dread about what the next day would bring. By morning, I was running on adrenaline and optimism, telling myself that no matter what happened, I had remained true to myself. Surely that had to count for something. Even to parents like mine, what my family didn't know, what nobody knew, was that for the past 2 years, I had been developing something significant. While pretending to study market analytics and corporate finance, I was actually building encryption software that could revolutionize personal data protection. The idea came to me during a data security lecture in sophomore year. The professor demonstrated how easily most security systems could be breached. While everyone else seemed merely academically interested, I saw a critical vulnerability in how digital information was protected. That night, I began sketching the framework for what would become Private Key, a security system that encrypted data on a level that made it virtually impenetrable. My apartment became command central for this secret project. I converted my bedroom into a coding station with 3 monitors and a whiteboard covering an entire wall. I would return from business classes, change out of my button-down shirts into t-shirts, and work until 3 or 4 in the morning. My roommate, Trevor, thought I was obsessed with some elaborate video game project. I never corrected him. "Dude, you need to get out more," he'd say, watching me hunched over my keyboard. "There's this thing called sunlight. Humans need it occasionally." I'd laugh and promise to join him for a party next weekend, knowing I never would. The truth was, I felt more alive in those night hours, solving complex problems and building something meaningful, than I ever did pretending to be interested in corporate merger strategies. The turning point came during junior year when I took an advanced cryptography class with Professor Thornton. Unlike most faculty, Thornton had worked in Silicon Valley for 15 years before turning to teaching. He immediately recognized that I was working on something beyond classroom assignments. After class one day, he asked to see my project. Reluctantly, I showed him the early version of Private Key. He studied it silently for almost 30 minutes, occasionally nodding or frowning at certain code segments. Finally, he looked up. "This is impressive, Otto. Really impressive. Have you considered what you're going to do with it?" I shrugged. "Finish it, I guess. Make it work right." "No." He shook his head. "I mean after that. This has commercial potential. Serious potential." That conversation changed everything. Professor Thornton began mentoring me, introducing me to industry contacts and helping refine the software architecture. Through him, I connected with TechLaunch, a startup accelerator that expressed interest in helping develop Private Key commercially. "They're seriously interested," Thornton told me after a meeting with their executive team, "but they want to see a more complete version before making an offer." "How close are you to finishing?" 6 months, maybe 8, I estimated. "I've got the core functionality working, but there are still security gaps I need to close." "Perfect timing for graduation," Thornton nodded. "Speaking of which, have you told your family about any of this yet?" I hadn't. The closer graduation came, the more my parents talked about my future at my father's firm. My mother had already arranged for me to meet key clients. My father had an office being prepared. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me daily. "You'll start in contract law," my father explained during a holiday dinner. "It's the foundation of everything we do." Jack started there too. Jack nodded smugly from across the table. "Took me 6 months to move up to corporate litigation. Bet it takes you at least a year, Otto." Every conversation was a reminder of the collision course I was on with their expectations. Yet I kept working on Private Key, knowing it represented my true future, not the one they had mapped out for me. 2 months before graduation, Professor Thornton arranged a meeting that would change everything. Thomas Wright, the CEO of Vertex Technologies, was visiting campus to speak with promising students. Vertex was among the top 5 technology companies in the country, known for security solutions and privacy advocacy. Thornton had shown Wright some aspects of my work, and he wanted to meet me personally. The meeting was scheduled in a small conference room at the Computer Science Building. I arrived 30 minutes early, nervously adjusting my tie and rehearsing my explanation of Private Key's architecture. When Thomas Wright walked in, I was struck by how normal he looked. No flashy watch, no designer suit. Just a tall man with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. "So you're the encryption wonderkind Thornton's been raving about," he said, sitting across from me. "Show me what you've built." For the next 2 hours, I demonstrated Private Key, explaining the innovations I had incorporated and the problems it solved. Wright asked incisive questions that pushed me to think beyond my current design. It was the most intellectually stimulating conversation I'd ever had. As our meeting concluded, Wright leaned back in his chair, studying me thoughtfully. "You've created something extraordinary here, Otto. Vertex doesn't just want to hire you. We want Private Key." My heart stopped. What do you mean? I mean acquisition. Vertex would purchase your technology and bring you on as the lead developer to continue its evolution under our umbrella. Purchase? As in millions. Yes, Wright nodded. But I need to see the finished product first. Can you complete it by graduation? I nodded, stunned. Yes, absolutely. Good. We'll meet again after your graduation to finalize everything. As I left the meeting, my mind was spinning. Millions of dollars. A leadership position at Vertex Technologies. Everything I had dreamed of was suddenly within reach. Yet all I could think about was how I would explain to my family that I would not be joining my father's firm, that the path they had planned for me since birth was not the one I would be taking. I was elated about my future, yet dreading the confrontation to come. As graduation approached, these conflicting emotions kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering how my family would react when they finally learned the truth. Graduation morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect early summer day that usually filled me with optimism. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie, the red and blue honors cords draped around my neck, the gold medallion of the Computer Science Honor Society hidden beneath my gown. Today, everything would change. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "We're here, main entrance. Don't keep us waiting." I took a deep breath, gathered my cap and gown, and headed to meet them. As I approached the main quad, I spotted them immediately. My father in his tailored charcoal suit, my mother in a cream designer dress, Jack looking like my father's younger clone, and Amy taking selfies beside the university sign. Picture perfect, as always. "There he is," my father announced, checking his watch. "Cutting it close, aren't you?" "The ceremony doesn't start for an hour," I pointed out. "In business, being on time means being 15 minutes early," Jack recited, one of our father's many mantras. Being 15 minutes early means being on time. My mother brushed non-existent lint from my shoulders. "The Peterson family is joining us for dinner tonight. Patrick's brought the partnership agreement for you to review after the ceremony." My stomach tightened. Patrick Peterson was my father's oldest friend and law partner. They had been planning my employment contract without even consulting me. "Actually, about that," I began, but my father cut me off. "Save the speech, Otto. Today's about celebrating, not negotiating your signing bonus." He laughed, clapping my shoulder hard enough to make me wince. "Though I told Patrick you'd expect at least what Jack got." Before I could respond, a university staff member began ushering graduates toward the seating area. With a quick nod to my family, I joined the procession, grateful for the temporary reprieve. As I took my place among the graduates, I scanned the growing crowd. My family sat in the reserved seating section, my father checking emails on his phone, my mother chatting with another parent, neither paying attention to the ceremony preparations. Then, unexpectedly, I spotted Thomas Wright slipping into a seat near the back. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave me an encouraging nod. My future and my past were both watching as I prepared to cross the threshold between them. The ceremony began with the predictable speeches about futures and possibilities. I barely heard them, my heart pounding as the moment of truth approached. When the dean began calling graduates, I mentally rehearsed my explanation one last time. The computer science graduates were called before the business school. When the dean announced, "Otto Ellison, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, summa cum laude," I stood and walked across the stage. From the corner of my eye, I saw the exact moment realization hit my family. My father's phone lowered slowly. My mother's conversation stopped mid-sentence. Jack's smug smile froze. Amy actually lowered her camera. Their expressions transformed from pride to confusion to anger in the span of seconds, though they maintained their composed facades in public. After receiving my diploma, I returned to my seat, feeling strangely liberated despite the confrontation I knew was coming. No more secrets, no more pretending. Whatever happened next, at least I could finally be honest. After the ceremony concluded, graduates scattered to find their families among the crowd. I spotted mine standing stiffly by a large oak tree, their celebratory mood evaporated. As I approached, my father's jaw was clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching. "Computer science," he said flatly. "Not a question, an accusation." "Yes," I replied, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "I changed my major after freshman year." "You lied to us," my mother hissed, her voice low but intense. For 3 years, I tried to tell you how important computer science was to me. You never listened. So you deliberately deceived us, Jack interjected. Took father's money while completely disregarding his wishes. I earned a full academic scholarship after freshman year. I corrected him. I haven't taken a dollar from any of you in over 2 years. This news seemed to shock them almost as much as my major. My father's expression darkened further. We need to discuss this, he said, checking his watch. We have dinner reservations at 7. Morton's. Don't be late. His tone made it clear. This would not be the celebration they had planned. I have something important to tell you about my future plans, I tried again. Save it, my father cut me off. 7 o'clock. We'll discuss your future then. With that, he turned and walked away, my mother and siblings following without a backward glance. As they disappeared into the crowd, my phone vibrated. A text from Thomas Wright. Congratulations, graduate. Still on for our meeting tomorrow to finalize everything? I texted back a confirmation, a strange calm settling over me. Tonight would be difficult. Perhaps the most difficult conversation of my life. But for the first time, I was facing my family as my authentic self, with a future of my own, awaiting me. Whatever happened at dinner, I would no longer be living a lie. I spent the afternoon alone in my apartment, putting the finishing touches on private key and preparing mentally for the confrontation to come. At 6:45, I arrived at Morton's, straightened my tie, and walked through the door to face my family and whatever consequences awaited. Morton's Steakhouse gleamed with polished wood and soft lighting, the kind of upscale restaurant my family frequented to see and be seen. The host recognized my father immediately, greeting him by name, before leading me to a corner table where my family was already seated. 4 pairs of eyes tracked my approach, none of them friendly. You're late, my father noted as I sat down. 6:55. 5 minutes early, by normal standards, 10 minutes late by his. Traffic, I said simply, placing my napkin in my lap. A server appeared, pouring ice water into my glass before retreating, clearly sensing the tension. For several minutes, nobody spoke. My mother sipped her wine. Amy scrolled through her phone under the table. Jack studied the menu with unnecessary intensity. My father stared directly at me, his expression unreadable. Finally, the silence broke with my father's voice, controlled and precise. Computer science, he said, as if the words themselves were distasteful. After everything we planned, after all the connections I've built for you, I needed to follow my own path, I began. Your own path? My mother laughed, a brittle sound. What exactly do you plan to do with this? Computer degree? IT support? Fixing printers at some office park? The condescension in her voice stung, but I kept my composure. Actually, I've developed encryption software that has significant commercial applications. I've already had interest from major technology companies. Interest doesn't pay bills, Jack interjected. Offers don't build careers. Father had a partnership waiting for you. A real career, my mother added. Security. Status. Everything we've worked to give you. I took a deep breath. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but technology is my passion. It always has been. And my software project has real potential. Potential, my father repeated with a dismissive wave. Do you know how many people with potential I've seen fail? How many startups collapse within a year? Potential. You're throwing away a guaranteed future for a fantasy. It's not a fantasy. I've already met with. My phone rang, interrupting me. Thomas Wright's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it quickly, but not before my mother noticed. Who's that? One of your computer friends? She asked, her tone making it clear how little she thought of them. A business contact, I replied. I'll call back later. My father leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. Otto, let me be clear. This rebellion ends tonight. You've had your fun playing with computers, but it's time to grow up. Patrick Peterson is holding an associate position for you. You start Monday morning. The finality in his voice was familiar. It was the tone that had directed my entire life, brooking no argument or alternative. But this time, I couldn't comply. I'm not joining the firm, I said quietly. I've accepted a position elsewhere. My father's face flushed red. Jack let out a scoff. My mother set down her wine glass with excessive care. This isn't a negotiation, my father said. This is your future. Exactly, I replied. My future. My choice. A tense silence fell over the table as our appetizers arrived. No one touched the food. My phone buzzed again with a text, then again. 3 missed calls from right now. I wondered briefly if something had happened with the acquisition, but I couldn't check now. My mother broke the silence, her voice artificially pleasant for the benefit of nearby diners. Otto, be reasonable. Everything has been arranged. What would we tell the Petersons? Our friends? That our son is throwing away a law career to play with computers? You could tell them I'm pursuing my passion and building something meaningful, I suggested. Amy, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly looked up from her phone. Should I start recording now, Mom? For the thing? My mother nodded, and Amy held up her phone, pointing it directly at me with a small smirk. I looked between them, confused. What's going on? Since you're so determined to make your own choices, my father said, we've made one as well. My mother reached into her designer handbag and withdrew a thick envelope, sliding it across the table toward me. From all of us, she announced with a cold smile. With growing unease, I opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of legal documents. The heading read, Declaration of Family Disownment. Below were signatures from my father, mother, brother, and sister. As I scanned the document, its purpose became clear. They were cutting me off completely, financially, legally, emotionally. The document declared I was no longer considered a member of the Ellison family. Amy zoomed in with her phone, capturing my reaction for what appeared to be their entertainment. This will make great content, she murmured. So authentic. We don't support failure in this family, my father stated flatly. If you refuse to follow the path we've set, you're on your own. Completely. No connections, no safety net, no family name to fall back on. We've already informed our friends and associates, my mother added. As far as our circle is concerned, we have 2 children now, not 3. The casual cruelty of it knocked the wind from me. I'd expected anger, arguments, perhaps even threats to cut financial support. But this complete excision from the family, documented and signed, on my graduation day? It was beyond anything I had imagined. Jack leaned forward, his expression a mixture of superiority and pity. You should see your face right now. Finally realizing actions have consequences? My phone rang again. Wright was now calling for the 4th time in 15 minutes. Whatever was happening at Vertex must be urgent. As the reality of my family's decision sank in, another truth emerged alongside it. These people, bound to me by blood but not by understanding or acceptance, had never truly seen me. Not once. In that moment, a strange calm settled over me. The documents before me weren't taking anything away that I had ever truly possessed. My family's love and approval had always been conditional, based on my compliance rather than my character. I gathered the disownment papers and returned them to the envelope. Amy continued filming, clearly expecting tears or pleading. Instead, I stood up, tucked the envelope into my jacket pocket, and straightened my tie. Thank you, I said simply. Thank you? My father repeated, clearly thrown by my response. Yes. Thank you for making this clean and simple. No more pretending. I looked at each of them in turn. I hope you find happiness. With that, I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving my stunned family behind. As the door closed behind me, I pulled out my phone and returned Thomas Wright's call, wondering what could possibly be so urgent that it required 4 calls on graduation night. What I couldn't have known then was that Wright's call would mark the beginning of a future far beyond anything my family could have imagined for me. Their disownment wasn't an ending at all. It was the first step toward a life entirely my own. The moment I stepped outside Morton's, My phone rang again. Thomas Wright's name flashed on the screen. I answered immediately, moving away from the restaurant entrance. "Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I missed your calls." "Otto, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you for the past hour." His voice was charged with an energy I hadn't heard before. "Where are you right now?" "Just left a dinner," I said vaguely, the weight of the disownment papers still heavy in my pocket. "Is something wrong with the acquisition?" "Wrong? Just the opposite. The board reviewed your software ahead of schedule. They're unanimously in favor of acquisition, but there's a complication." I tensed. "What kind of complication?" "A good one. Meridian Technologies somehow got wind of our interest. They've put in a competing offer. We need to finalize our deal tonight, or we risk losing you to them." Meridian was Vertex's largest competitor. The situation suddenly felt surreal. Just minutes ago, my family had discarded me as worthless. And now two technology giants were competing to acquire my work. "Tonight?" I repeated. "But we were scheduled to meet tomorrow." "Plans change. Our legal team is at Vertex headquarters right now, preparing the paperwork. Can you come immediately?" I looked down at my graduation suit. Then, back at the restaurant, where my family was probably still sitting in stunned silence. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. "Perfect. I'll have security expecting you." As I hailed a cab, the dissonance of the situation hit me fully. This morning, I had woken up hoping to finally gain my family's approval. Now, disowned and cast out, I was heading to a meeting that could make me a millionaire. Life had a strange sense of irony. The Vertex Technologies headquarters dominated the downtown skyline, its glass facade reflecting the sunset in shades of orange and purple. As promised, security was expecting me, escorting me directly to the executive floor where Thomas Wright was waiting outside a large conference room. "Otto," he greeted me with a firm handshake. "Thank you for coming so quickly. Are you all right? You look a bit shaken." "Family dinner didn't go as planned," I said, attempting a smile. Wright studied me for a moment. "Family can be complicated, especially when career paths diverge from expectations." "You have no idea," I muttered. "Actually, I might." He gave me a knowing look. My father was a third-generation banker. He didn't speak to me for 5 years after I chose technology over finance. This glimpse of shared experience created an unexpected connection between us. Wright gestured toward the conference room doors. "Ready to change your life?" I nodded, and he opened the doors. Inside, 8 people sat around a massive table. Legal documents spread before them. Wright led me to the head of the table and introduced me to everyone: Vertex's legal counsel, the CFO, the head of product development, and several board members. The next 3 hours were a blur of contract reviews, technical discussions, and negotiations. Private Key's architecture was examined in detail. Questions were asked about scalability, potential applications, and future development. I answered confidently, the technical challenges a welcome distraction from my personal turmoil. Finally, the CFO slid a document across the table. "Here's our final offer, Mr. Ellison." I looked down at the paper and froze. The acquisition price was $18 million, with an additional performance-based bonus structure that could add another $7 million over 5 years. Plus, a leadership position, heading the division that would develop and implement Private Key across Vertex's product line. $18 million, I said, barely trusting my voice. "Plus, equity options," the CFO noted. "And the leadership position comes with a base salary of $350,000 annually." Wright watched me closely. "Is the offer acceptable, Otto?" In that moment, I thought of my family's disownment papers, of my father's dismissal of my computer hobby, of my mother's condescension about fixing printers, of my siblings' mockery. All the years of being told my passion wasn't valid, wasn't valuable, wasn't worthy. "The offer is acceptable," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Wright grinned and handed me a pen. "Then let's make it official." With steady hands, I signed the acquisition agreement. As witnesses added their signatures, a strange sensation washed over me. It wasn't just the realization that I was now a millionaire many times over. It was the understanding that I had just taken the first step on a path entirely of my own making. After the signing, Wright opened a bottle of champagne that had been chilling nearby. To Otto Ellison and Private Key, he toasted. The future of digital security at Vertex Technologies. As glasses clinked and congratulations flowed, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Amy. You've made the biggest mistake of your life. Dad says don't come crawling back when your computer games fail. I silently showed the message to Wright, who read it and shook his head. Family can be the slowest to recognize our true potential, he said quietly. Give them time. I'm not sure time will help, I admitted, thinking of the Disownment papers. Then build something so undeniably successful, they can't ignore it, Wright suggested. The best revenge is enormous success. I smiled, pocketing my phone without responding to Amy's message. I'm not interested in revenge, just in building something meaningful. Wright nodded approvingly. That's why you'll succeed, Otto. You're driven by creation, not vindication. As the meeting concluded and people began to disperse, Wright pulled me aside. We'll announce the acquisition publicly next week. In the meantime, take a few days to process everything. Find a place to live, close to the office if possible. Your new life starts Monday morning. I left Vertex headquarters shortly after midnight, stepping into the warm summer air as a completely different person than I had been that morning. In the span of 18 hours, I had graduated college, been disowned by my family, and become a millionaire tech executive. As I caught a cab back to my apartment, I realized I hadn't even had time to fully process what had happened. When I unlocked my door, Trevor was still up, playing video games in the living room. Dude, how was the fancy family dinner? He asked, not looking away from his game. I set down my keys and laughed softly. Trevor, you're not going to believe the day I've had. 3 months passed in a whirlwind. I moved into a downtown loft within walking distance of Vertex headquarters, furnished it minimally, and threw myself into my new role. The public announcement of Vertex's acquisition of Private Key and my appointment as head of the newly formed Security Solutions Division made headlines in the tech world. TechCrunch ran a feature titled, Encryption Wonderkind, the college grad behind Vertex's $18M acquisition. Wired published an in-depth analysis of Private Key's architecture, calling it the most significant advancement in personal data security in a decade. My face appeared in industry publications, business journals, and technology blogs. I barely noticed the attention, too focused on building my team and refining the software for its commercial launch. Wright gave me unprecedented freedom to hand-pick developers and set our division's direction. For someone just months out of college, the responsibility was enormous, but I thrived under the pressure. It was 6 weeks into my new role when the first contact from my family came. An email from Jack, brief and coldly professional. Saw your name in the Boston Business Journal. Congratulations on your success. If you're interested in discussing your security needs, our firm has an excellent technology practice. Jack Ellison, Esquire. No acknowledgement of our relationship. No mention of the disownment. Just a business solicitation thinly disguised as congratulations. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Amy sent a friend request on every social media platform I rarely used. When I didn't immediately accept, she followed up with messages. Otto. Oh my God, so proud of you. Always knew you were brilliant with computers. Let's catch up soon. Number. Proud sister. The hashtag made me laugh out loud. This from the person who had recorded my reaction to being disowned for her social media entertainment. I left her requests unanswered as well. My mother was more direct. A handwritten note arrived at my office, somehow bypassing the mail screening process. Otto, your father and I have been following your success with interest. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss rebuilding our relationship. Dinner at our home next Sunday, Mother? No apology, no acknowledgement of the harm they had caused. Just an invitation predicated on my newfound success and wealth. I placed the note in my desk drawer without replying. My father was the last to reach out, the most transparent in his motivation. A voicemail left on my personal cell, his voice as commanding as ever. Otto, this is your father. I understand you've done well for yourself. Several of my clients have expressed interest in Vertex's security solutions. We should discuss how to leverage these connections to mutual benefit. Call me. Not a word about family. Not a mention of reconciliation. A business proposition. Nothing more. I deleted the message without calling back. Their sudden interest in reconnecting mirrored the growing public recognition of private key's importance. As Vertex began integrating the technology into its products, industry analysts took note. Our stock price climbed steadily. Thomas Wright mentioned me in interviews, crediting the acquisition as one of his most strategic moves. Despite my family's overtures, I maintained my distance, focusing instead on building a different kind of family. I hired Professor Thornton as a senior consultant. I recruited talented graduates who, like me, saw technology as a tool for positive change. I fostered a collaborative environment where innovation was celebrated and hierarchy minimized. Under my leadership, the Security Solutions Division expanded rapidly. Private Key evolved from my college project into an enterprise-level security suite. I found purpose in the work, fulfillment in the challenges, and connection with colleagues who valued me for my mind rather than my conformity to expectations. 8 months after graduation, Vertex announced its annual technology conference, Vertex Con, a prestigious industry event showcasing the company's latest innovations. As head of the fastest-growing division, I was scheduled to deliver a keynote presentation on the future of data security. 2 weeks before the conference, Wright called me into his office. His expression was serious as I took a seat across from him. "Something wrong?" I asked. "Not wrong, exactly." He slid a tablet across the desk. "But you should see this." On screen was a confirmation list for Vertex Con VIP attendees. 4 names were highlighted: Gerald Ellison, Diane Ellison, Jack Ellison, Amy Ellison. "Your family has purchased platinum sponsor tickets," Wright explained. $15,000 each. "They'll have access to all sessions, including your keynote." My stomach tightened. They've never shown interest in technology conferences before. "I thought you should know in advance," Wright said. "We can reassign your keynote if you prefer." I considered it briefly. Avoidance would be easier, but it would also mean allowing their presence to dictate my actions yet again. "No," I decided. "I'll give the keynote as planned." Wright studied me carefully. "Are you sure? These conferences are recorded. Press will be present." "I'm sure," I said with growing confidence. "Private Key deserves its moment. I won't let personal complications interfere with that." "Good man," Wright nodded. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Standing your ground publicly sends a message." As I left his office, a complex mixture of emotions churned within me. Anxiety about facing my family in such a public setting, determination to showcase my work regardless of their presence, and beneath it all, a tiny spark of satisfaction that they would witness firsthand exactly what they had dismissed as a worthless hobby. The next 2 weeks were consumed with preparations for Vertex Con. I refined my presentation, rehearsed with my team, and tried not to think about the inevitable confrontation looming at the conference. The night before the event, I stood in my apartment looking out at the city lights, remembering the frightened, hopeful graduate I had been less than a year ago. Tomorrow, that graduate would face the family that had rejected him, not as a supplicant seeking approval, but as an industry leader in his own right. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. My journey had begun with a public humiliation orchestrated by my family. It would come full circle with a public demonstration of what I had built without them. As I turned away from the window, my phone chimed with a text from Thomas Wright. "Ready for tomorrow?" I typed back a simple response: "More than ready." Whatever happened at Vertex Con, I would face it on my terms, not theirs. The thought brought a sense of calm as I prepared for sleep. For the first time since receiving those disownment papers, I felt truly free of my family's shadow. Tomorrow would only confirm what I already knew. I had found my path, and it was leading me exactly where I was meant to go. Vertex Con transformed the downtown convention center into a technological showcase. Blue and silver banners bearing the Vertex logo hung from every column. Interactive displays demonstrated the company's latest innovations. Thousands of attendees from across the tech industry networked, learned, and explored. I arrived early, reviewing my presentation one last time in the speaker's lounge. My team had created a stunning visual demonstration of Private Key's capabilities, concluding with the announcement of our next-generation security protocol. Everything was ready. An hour before my keynote, I slipped into the back of the main auditorium to get a feel for the space. The room was already filling with attendees eager to secure good seats. As I scanned the crowd, I spotted them in the third row, center section. My family, dressed impeccably as always, looking distinctly uncomfortable among the tech executives and developers surrounding them. My father checked his watch repeatedly, a habit when he felt out of place. My mother maintained her social smile while clearly recognizing no one around her. Jack scrolled through emails on his phone, bored. Amy was the only one who seemed engaged, taking photos of the stage for her social media. They hadn't noticed me at the back of the room. I observed them for a few moments, struck by how foreign they looked in this environment that had become my natural habitat. These people who had shaped my early life now seemed like strangers, connected to me by genetics, but separated by values and vision. I returned to the speaker's lounge to center myself before the presentation. Thomas Wright found me there, adjusting my tie in front of a mirror. "Your family's here," he noted. "Third row, center," I confirmed. I saw them. Nervous? I considered the question. Not about the presentation, just trying to decide how to handle them afterward. Wright placed a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever you decide, remember you're speaking from a position of strength now. Their approval or disapproval doesn't define your worth." "I know," I nodded. "That's what makes this different from every interaction I've ever had with them." A staff member appeared at the door. "5 minutes, Mr. Ellison." Wright gave my shoulder a final squeeze. "Go show them what they missed out on." I made my way to the side of the stage as the convention's MC warmed up the crowd. The auditorium was now packed to capacity, over 2,000 people waiting to hear about the future of data security. My future. The future I had built with my own hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please welcome to the stage the CEO of Vertex Technologies, Mr. Thomas Wright." Applause filled the room as Wright took the stage, his presence commanding immediate respect. He welcomed the attendees and gave a brief overview of Vertex's vision before turning to my introduction. "When I first met our next speaker, he was a college student with an extraordinary idea," Wright began. "9 months later, he heads our fastest-growing division and has revolutionized how we think about data security. His encryption protocol has been called the most significant advancement in personal privacy in a decade. Please welcome the creator of Private Key and the head of Vertex's Security Solutions Division, Otto Ellison." As I walked onto the stage amid thunderous applause, I couldn't help glancing at the third row. My family sat motionless, shock evident on their faces as they witnessed the reception. My father's typical stoic expression had cracked into naked surprise. My mother's hand was frozen midway to her mouth. Jack's phone was temporarily forgotten in his lap. Even Amy had stopped taking photos, staring open-mouthed at the stage. For a brief moment, our eyes met. I gave them a small nod of acknowledgement before turning my attention to the audience at large. "Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all for being here today," I began. "We live in an age where our most personal information exists as data, vulnerable to those who would exploit it. Private Key was born from a simple belief. Privacy is a fundamental right, not a luxury." Over the next 40 minutes, I guided the audience through Private Key's architecture, its implementation across Vertex's product ecosystem, and our vision for the future of data security. I spoke with confidence and authority, occasionally illustrating points with personal anecdotes from my development process. "The breakthrough came during my junior year of college," I explained, "when I realized conventional encryption models were addressing the wrong problem. We weren't just protecting data, we were protecting people's lives, relationships, and identities." Throughout the presentation, I was aware of my family watching, but their presence no longer felt like a weight. Instead, it added a certain symmetry to the moment. They were witnesses now, not judges. As I concluded my remarks and introduced our next-generation protocol, the audience rose in a standing ovation. I thanked them, acknowledged my team seated in the front row, and exited the stage to continued applause. In the wings, Wright waited with an approving smile. Knocked it out of the park, he said. The press is already buzzing. A staff member approached with an urgent expression. Mr. Ellison, your family is asking to see you. They're waiting in the VIP reception area. Wright raised an eyebrow. What do you want to do? I took a deep breath. I'll see them. It's time to close this chapter properly. The VIP reception area was a quiet oasis amid the convention bustle. My family stood together in a corner, still looking out of place despite their expensive attire. As I approached, their conversation halted abruptly. Otto, my mother stepped forward, arms opening for an embrace I didn't return. Darling, what an impressive presentation. We had no idea your work was so significant. Thank you, I said simply, maintaining a professional distance. My father cleared his throat. Son, I think we may have been hasty in our judgment. Your technology clearly has substantial market value. Several of my clients have expressed interest in implementing it, Jack added, his tone suggesting he was doing me a favor by mentioning this. Amy beamed her practiced social media smile. I always told everyone my brother was a genius. My followers would love to hear your story. We could do an interview segment for my channel. I looked at them each in turn, noting how quickly their tone had changed now that my success was publicly established. The same people who had disowned me on my graduation day were now eager to claim connection. It's interesting, I said calmly, how perspective shifts when validation comes from outside sources. My father frowned slightly. We've always valued excellence in this family. You've clearly achieved that, albeit in an unconventional field. What your father means, my mother interjected smoothly, is that we're proud of you, Otto. Perhaps we should put the past behind us. You'll join us for dinner tonight? We have reservations at La Maison. I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope. It was wrinkled from being carried for so long. The disownment papers they had presented me with at graduation. Before we discuss dinner plans, I said, I thought you might want these back. I opened the envelope and removed the papers, now marked with a large red stamp reading void. Beside it, I had paperclipped a copy of the Vertex acquisition agreement with the $18 million figure highlighted. I kept these as a reminder, I explained. Not of your rejection, but of the moment I was finally free to become myself. Their expressions shifted as they looked at the documents, the magnitude of their miscalculation suddenly clear. My father's face flushed. My mother's smile faltered. Jack straightened his tie unnecessarily, Amy's eyes fixed on the highlighted figure. Otto, surely you understand we were only trying to guide you towards success, my father began. I do understand that, I interrupted gently. But success isn't measured by following someone else's path. It's built by having the courage to follow your own. I handed the papers back to my father, who took them reflexively. I don't hold any grudges, I continued. The truth is, your disowning me was the most valuable gift you could have given me. It forced me to stop seeking your approval and start building a life that reflected my own values. Does this mean you won't be rejoining the family? My mother asked, confusion evident in her voice. That depends, I replied. Are you interested in knowing me as I am, or only as a successful person you can claim credit for? The question hung in the air between us. For perhaps the first time, I saw uncertainty in my father's eyes. We've always wanted what's best for you, he said finally. No, I corrected him kindly. You wanted what you believed was best for me. There's a difference. I glanced at my watch. I have a panel discussion in 15 minutes. If you're genuinely interested in rebuilding a relationship, I'm open to that. But it needs to be based on mutual respect, not conditional approval. I handed my father a business card. My contact information. The ball is in your court. As I turned to leave, my mother called after me. Otto, wait. Are you really not coming to dinner? I paused and looked back at them. I already have plans tonight. I'm hosting a dinner for my team and mentor to celebrate our launch. The people who believed in me before it was profitable to do so. With that, I walked away, leaving my family to contemplate the choices that had led us all to this moment. As I rejoined the conference, several attendees stopped me to ask questions or offer congratulations. I moved among them with a newfound ease, no longer carrying the weight of unmet expectations. That evening, Seated around a large table at a local restaurant, I looked at the faces of my team. Professor Thornton raised a glass in toast. Thomas Wright shared stories from his early career. Developers and designers who had helped bring Private Key to life laughed and celebrated our shared achievement. This, I realized, was my true family now. People connected not by obligation or blood, but by shared vision and mutual respect. The journey from that devastating graduation dinner to this moment of triumph had taught me the most valuable lesson of all. Success isn't measured by others' approval, but by the integrity with which you follow your own path. As I stood to offer my own toast, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for everything that had happened, even the painful parts. Especially the painful parts. They had forged me into someone stronger, clearer, and more authentic than I could have become otherwise. To possibilities, I toasted, raising my glass. And to becoming exactly who we're meant to be. The glasses clinked, the moment perfect in its simplicity. Whatever the future held, whatever relationship might or might not rebuild with my biological family, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. What's your story of standing up for your own path despite pressure to conform? I'd love to hear how you've navigated similar challenges in your life. Please comment below with your experiences. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others who might need encouragement to follow their authentic path. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the greatest gift is the freedom to become who you truly are.